I want you to imagine waking up on just a perfectly ordinary Tuesday morning.
Okay, set the scene.
Right. So it's May 22, 2026. You roll out of bed, you head down your street, and you sit in this like really sleek chair.
Hmm.
And a robotic arm, which is equipped with real-time 3D scanning and sub-millimeter predictive modeling, gives you a flawless haircut.
Wow.
And the cost for this? Less than $1.
That is wild.
Right. So while you're brushing off the stray hairs, you glance at your news feed and you read that an AI just conclusively disproved a legendary mathematical conjecture.
One that human geniuses have been banging their heads against for decades, by the way.
Exactly. So you scroll down a bit more, and another article just casually mentions that a completely synthetic silicone membrane egg just hatched 26 healthy chickens.
Which is laying the biological groundwork to literally resurrect the extinct dodo bird.
Yeah, the dodo bird. And as you try to, process the sheer scale of all this on your phone, you notice your device is feeling incredibly sluggish,
Yes.
like practically archaic.
Right, it's lagging.
Yeah, but when you go to look for a cheap upgrade, you realize the affordable smartphone market is just dying out.
Completely drying up.
And why? Because the entire global supply of high-bandwidth memory chips is being aggressively vacuumed up by massive thinking data centers.
It really does sound like science fiction.
It sounds exactly like the opening montage of a cyberpunk film. But, I mean, this isn't fiction. This is the very real, very bizarre reality of the dispatch we are analyzing today.
It is a profound portrait of a world undergoing a phase transition. We aren't just looking at isolated technological novelties here.
Right.
We're looking at a violent convergence of breakthroughs that are fundamentally rewriting the physical, biological, and economic rules of our civilization.
Today's show is an inspiring celebration of impossible ideas and the minds brave enough to chase them down. Finding passengers bold enough to embark on our good ship's journey is harder than most people think. So drop a very humane thumbs up right now to send a signal flare to drifting knowledge pirates like yourself. We know they're out there. Let's bring them home. We're keeping it lighthearted, as usual, but we promise to never skimp on the intelligence. Now, let's kick off this voyage with today's new revelations.
I am so ready for this.
So we are diving deep into a dispatch from Dr. Alex Wissner-Gross's newsletter. It's called The Innermost Loop, and it's dated May 22, 2026.
Great source material.
Oh, it's fantastic. Our mission for this deep dive is to synthesize how these incredibly disparate breakthroughs, from autonomous AI and silicon economics to synthetic biology and the interplanetary internet.
All of it.
Right, how all of it is completely restructuring the human economy and really our place within it.
Yeah, and to understand the physical and biological changes, I think we have to start at the software layer. Because the capabilities of artificial intelligence have evolved so much. I mean, we're no longer talking about a chatbot fetching information for you.
No, not at all.
We are talking about machines actively reasoning, predicting, and designing reality.
And that distinction is just so critical. We've entered the era of the autonomous agent.
You really have.
What the dispatch reveals is that the concept of artificial general intelligence, or at least highly advanced reasoning, is currently manifesting in ways that directly challenge human intuition.
Yeah, let's look at forecasting, for example.
Okay, you did it.
So there's this rigorous evaluation called Forecast Bench, which was established by the Forecasting Research Institute. And on this benchmark, a large language model, which is referred to in the dispatch as Google DeepMind's Green Tree model, has actually matched the performance of human super forecasters.
Wait, okay, let's break that down for the listener, because when you say super forecaster, it sounds like someone reading tarot cards or, making lucky guesses on the stock market.
Yeah, right.
What does that term actually mean in the context of this benchmark?
Yeah, so it's a very specific empirical term. A super forecaster is an individual who has been rigorously tested over years.
Okay.
And they've proven to possess a highly analytical, objective approach to predicting complex geopolitical, economic, and social events.
So they're not just guessing?
No, not at all. They are trained to strip away their own cognitive biases. They update their beliefs based on raw probabilities, and they synthesize vast amounts of conflicting information.
Wow.
They were essentially the absolute peak of human predictive intuition. These are the people intelligence agencies consult.
And now this green tree AI model is anticipating the future just as well as the most disciplined human minds on Earth.
Exactly.
That is just wild. I mean, if you are listening to this and you rely on your gut feeling or your years of industry experience to make strategic decisions, you really have to realize the baseline just shifted entirely.
It absolutely did.
But what blows my mind even more, honestly, is the Alibaba Qwen 3.7 max run that's mentioned in the dispatch. Oh, that run was incredible.
Right. It says this model ran for 35 hours autonomously, performing 432 kernel evaluations across 1,158 tool calls.
Yeah.
And the result was a 10x speedup over the Triton reference.
Okay, so I read that, and my brain immediately goes to a chess analogy.
Okay, let's hear it.
It feels like a chess computer that doesn't just play the game, but actively builds a better, faster chess computer while it's playing.
Well, I'm going to push back slightly on the chess analogy there.
Oh, really? Why?
Because chess is a closed system with fixed rules.
Yeah.
What the Qwen model did is more akin to a computer rewriting the fundamental physics engine of the game while it's actively playing it.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a big difference.
Yeah, let's demystify the jargon here for a second. When the dispatch talks about Triton, it's referring to an open-source programming language developed by OpenAI.
Right, I've heard of that.
And it's used to write highly efficient custom code for AI chips, specifically GPUs.
Okay, so Triton is the language the heavy lifting code is written in. So what exactly is a kernel evaluation?
Good question. A kernel, in this context, is a core piece of computational code. It's a specific, highly optimized mathematical operation that runs directly on the silicon.
Ah, okay.
And writing good kernels is incredibly difficult. It requires elite human engineers who deeply understand the physical architecture of the microchip just to squeeze every drop of performance out of it.
So it's not something a novice could do.
Not at all. But what Alibaba did was give their AI model a goal. Make this process faster.
And then they just let it loose.
Exactly. For 35 hours, with zero human intervention, the AI wrote code, tested it, analyzed the performance bottlenecks, used external software tools, those are the 11 to 158 tool calls, and then iteratively rewrote its own underlying kernels.
It was literally thinking about how to think faster.
Precisely. And it didn't just improve it a little bit, it achieved a geometric mean speedup of 10 times over the human established baseline.
10 times. That's insane.
For decades, computer scientists theorized about recursive self-improvement. The moment a machine becomes smart enough to improve its own software architecture.
Right, the whole runaway exponential effect thing.
Yes. And this 35-hour autonomous run is the empirical proof that recursive self-improvement is no longer just a thought experiment. The machine is doing the elite engineering work to make the machine better.
And it isn't just optimizing its own plumbing either. It's stepping into fields that we have historically walled off and labeled human genius only. Like, the dispatch notes that OpenAI used a GPT 5.5 model to find a counterexample that disproves Erdős's unit distance conjecture.
Yeah, that was a huge moment.
And the community is calling this the flag of artificial intelligence. But why is a math problem getting a dramatic title like the flag?
Well, because advanced mathematics is widely considered the purest expression of abstract human thought.
Fair point.
Paul Erdős was one of the most prolific and brilliant mathematicians of the 20th century. And a conjecture is essentially a highly educated mathematical guess that seems true but hasn't been rigorously proven or disproven yet.
Right, like Fermat's last theorem before it was solved.
Exactly. So for a machine to crack an Erdős conjecture, it isn't just crunching massive data sets or calculating pi to a trillion digits.
It's doing something deeper.
Much deeper. It is engaging in abstract lateral reasoning. It has to explore logical spaces that require a spark of actual creativity.
Wow.
So by finding the counterexample, the AI planted a flag in the most sacred territory of human intellect. It proved it can generate net new mathematical truth.
It's like the AI walked into a room full of Nobel laureates, looked at a blackboard they'd been staring at for 50 years, picked up a piece of chalk, and casually solved it before just walking out.
That's a great way to picture it.
And it's not just operating in the abstract world of math either. It's operating in physical architecture. The source outlines a new benchmark called the OpenSCAD LLM benchmark.
Right, the 3D modeling test.
Yeah, they tested these frontier models on their ability to write code for 3D modeling. And Gemini 3.5 Flash High autonomously reconstructed the Pantheon from photos.
The mechanism of how it achieved this is really what makes it so revolutionary.
How so?
Well, OpenSCAD isn't a program where you use a mouse to just drag and drop 3D shapes.
No, it's not like a standard CAD program.
No, it is a script-based modeler. You have to write mathematical code to define the geometry, the angles, the intersections, the hollow spaces.
That sounds incredibly complex.
It is. So the AI took two-dimensional visual data standard photographs of the Pantheon, which is an incredibly complex 2,000-year-old structure.
With the massive dome and the columns.
Yes, and the oculus at the top.
Yeah.
And it had to reverse engineer the physical reality of all of that.
Through a flat picture.
Exactly. It autonomously translated 2D visual relationships into precise three-dimensional spatial logic, and then wrote the complex mathematical syntax to generate a flawless CAD model.
That is just
The machine is exhibiting structural intuition.
structural intuition. And it's exhibiting chemical intuition, too, because the dispatch highlights a collaboration between Chimera and Cuspii.
Ah, yes, the Forever Chemicals project.
Right. They use generative AI to design materials specifically to remove PFAS, those per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, the toxic forever chemicals from the global water supply.
A massive, real-world problem.
Huge. And to do this, the AI explored a design space of 300 trillion chemical structures. 300 trillion.
To contextualize that number, if every human on Earth tested one chemical structure every single second of their lives, we wouldn't even scratch the surface of that design space.
It's just unfathomable.
The traditional scientific method, trial and error in a wet lab, is completely useless at that scale.
So how does an AI actually search 300 trillion possibilities without taking a million years to do it?
Think of it like this. Imagine trying to find a specific, perfectly round grain of sand on a beach stretching for thousands of miles.
Okay, practically impossible for a person.
Right, a human scientist would start picking up grains one by one. But the AI doesn't do that. It analyzes the physics of the ocean currents, the wind patterns, the mineral composition of the surrounding cliffs,
Oh, I see.
and it mathematically predicts exactly where the currents would have deposited that specific shape of sand. It uses predictive modeling to eliminate 99.99% of the beach instantly, zeroing in on the exact coordinates.
That is so smart.
In chemistry, the AI uses quantum mechanical approximations and neural networks to predict the properties of molecules before they even exist physically.
Unbelievable.
So out of 300 trillion possibilities, it isolated over 5,000 novel candidates that bind to forever chemicals.
There's a brilliant quote Wissner-Gross includes in the dispatch regarding this kind of breakthrough. A commentator noted, "One day AI will cure a disease, and many people will look you dead in the eye and say, the cure was already in the corpus of human knowledge."
Yeah, that quote is spot on.
It is hilariously accurate. We predictably move the goalposts. Whenever AI achieves a miracle, we try to protect our egos by saying, well, just remix data we already gave it. It didn't really invent anything.
Right, people love to minimize it.
But if you are listening to this and your town's water supply is contaminated with forever chemicals, do you care if the machine remixed the solution out of a 300 trillion molecule haystack? Of course not. The outcome is what matters.
Exactly. The philosophical debate over remixing versus inventing completely dissolves when faced with actual utility.
100%.
However, exploring a 300 trillion molecule design space or autonomously writing thousands of kernel evaluations isn't free.
No, it definitely takes a toll.
That level of recursive thought requires a massive continuous burn of physical energy and hardware. The software revolution we just described is violently colliding with the physical reality of global supply chains.
Which brings us directly to the physical substrate. The machine brain is starving, and its calories are compute power and memory.
A very apt metaphor.
According to Epoch AI, the spending on high bandwidth memory, or HBM, jumped from 52% to 63% of total AI chip component spending in under 2 years.
And we need to understand why HBM is a critical bottleneck here.
Let's get into it.
An AI model like GPT 5.5 or Qwen 3.7 Max is composed of hundreds of billions, perhaps trillions of parameters. To generate a single word or a single line of code, the processor has to shuffle massive amounts of data back and forth from its memory.
Right.
Standard memory chips simply cannot move the data fast enough. The processor ends up sitting idle, just waiting for the information to arrive.
So it creates a traffic jam.
Exactly. High bandwidth memory solves this by physically stacking memory dies on top of each other right next to the processor, connecting them with thousands of microscopic vertical wires.
That sounds incredibly delicate to build.
It is incredibly difficult to manufacture, the yield rates are very low, and it is brutally expensive.
And because the megacorporations are buying up every single HBM chip TSMC and Samsung can produce, the rest of the consumer tech world is just starving.
Starting entirely.
The dispatch notes that the cheap, affordable smartphone is literally dying. Worldwide handset shipments are projected to drop 13% in 2026. This is a crazy macroeconomic shift. The cloud is literally cannibalizing the edge.
It is a massive reallocation of global resources.
Yeah.
For the last 2 decades, the defining trend of technology was decentralization, putting increasingly powerful, cheap computers into the pockets of every person on Earth.
That was the whole dream of the smartphone era.
But the paradigm has inverted. The data centers required to run these frontier AI models have an insatiable, inelastic demand for memory chips. They have the capital to outbid consumer electronics manufacturers at every single turn.
So they just buy it all up.
As a result, the foundational building blocks of the digital economy are being diverted away from the smartphone in your pocket and routed directly into centralized server farms.
You know, if we look at this historically, it reminds me of the rapid industrialization of a nation.
How so?
Imagine an industrial revolution where every single scrap of steel produced by the mills is suddenly diverted by the government to build massive dreadnoughts and skyscrapers.
Okay, I see where you're going.
And if you are a citizen who just wants to buy a steel bicycle to ride to work, you are entirely out of luck. The factories building the future need the steel more than you need the bike.
That's a really great way to frame it.
That's what's happening with memory chips.
Yeah.
The raw material of our era is being hoarded.
That analogy perfectly captures the systemic starvation of the consumer market. And because silicon is now the most strategic resource on the planet, the companies building these models are terrified of being cut off from their supply.
Oh, I bet.
The dispatch reports that Anthropic, which is one of the leading AI labs, is in advanced talks with Microsoft to adopt their custom Maya chips.
That is a massive signal to the market. For the last few years, NVIDIA has been the undisputed king of AI hardware.
Undisputed.
But Anthropic talking to Microsoft for Maya chips proves that the reliance on a single silicon monopoly is viewed as an existential threat. These AI companies desperately need a second source of hardware just to ensure they can keep breathing.
Hedging against physical supply chain failure is now the primary directive. But it isn't just the private sector playing this game.
Right. Governments are getting involved, too.
The geopolitical stakes are just too high. The dispatch highlights that the White House has awarded $2 billion in grants to 9 quantum computing firms.
Firms like IBM, right?
IBM, yes. And pure-play quantum companies like Rigetti. But the defining detail here is that the government is taking direct equity in these firms in exchange for the grants.
Which, just to be clear, we are looking at the facts of this dispatch exactly as they occurred. A $2 billion government equity stake in private tech startups is a historic pivot in how federal industrial policy operates. We're just reporting the policy shift here, no political stance, but it's undeniable that it's a huge move.
We have to ask why this specific pivot is happening now.
Right.
And it comes back to hedging bets across entire paradigms.
Classical versus quantum.
Exactly. Classical silicon, the GPUs running the AI we've discussed so far, is currently the dominant paradigm. But quantum computing operates on completely different physics.
It's not just ones and zeros anymore.
No, instead of binary bits of ones and zeros, quantum uses qubits that exist in multiple states simultaneously. This allows them to solve certain types of incredibly complex mathematical problems exponentially faster than any classical supercomputer ever could.
So if they crack it, it changes everything.
If a breakthrough in quantum error correction occurs, it could render classical silicon encryption and optimization obsolete overnight.
Wow.
The federal government recognizes that whoever controls the ultimate physical substrate of compute, whether it ends up being classical or quantum, controls the foundation of 21st century economic and military security. They're ensuring they own a piece of the bedrock.
So we have AI software that is self-improving and solving impossible chemistry, and we have a brutal high-stakes war over the physical hardware required to run it. But all of that compute power isn't just staying locked away in giant, humming data centers.
No, it's stepping out into the real world.
The intelligence is beginning to download into physical moving bodies. We are witnessing the birth of consumer-scale embodied intelligence. And I have to admit, when I read the dispatch on robotics, it felt incredibly surreal.
It's definitely a leap.
UB Tech unveiled the Walker C1. This is a full-size humanoid robot built for what they call urban coexistence. It actually performs ballet and ballroom dances with human partners.
The phrase urban coexistence is the critical takeaway here. We are very accustomed to industrial automation.
Like car factories.
Right, we have had robots building cars for decades, but those are massive, blind, mechanical arms bolted to a factory floor, kept behind steel safety cages because they will crush a human without even noticing.
Yeah, you don't want to get near those.
They operate in highly structured, predictable environments. Urban coexistence implies the exact opposite. A city sidewalk or a ballroom dance floor is a chaotic, entirely unstructured environment.
Right, doing the waltz requires constant microsecond adjustments. You have to feel the pressure of your partner's hand, anticipate their shifting center of gravity, adjust your footwork to avoid stepping on their toes.
Exactly. And this touches on a concept in computer science known as Moravec's paradox.
Oh, what's that?
Hans Moravec observed in the 1980s that high-level reasoning, like playing chess or proving math theorems, requires very little computational power for an AI.
Okay.
But low-level sensor motor skills, like walking, maintaining balance, or dancing, require enormous, staggering amounts of computational resources.
Why is that?
Because evolution spent a billion years perfecting physical movement and spatial awareness, but only a few 100,000 years on abstract thought.
That makes a lot of sense when you put it like that.
A UB-Tech robot smoothly ballroom dancing proves that the massive influx of compute we discussed in the previous segment is finally breaking Moravec's paradox. The machine can now perceive, predict, and react to physical reality in real time.
And it isn't just a bespoke prototype built for a tech expo. The commercialization is happening instantly.
It's scaling fast.
The dispatch notes that China's Engine AI just activated a massive 10,000-unit humanoid production line in Shenzhen. And they're shipping out units called the T800. Now, I'm sorry, but I have to stop here.
I know what you're going to say.
The T800, really? Have the engineers in Shenzhen never seen a movie from 1984 directed by James Cameron?
It is quite the choice.
I mean, seriously, shipping thousands of autonomous humanoids and naming them after the Terminator is a truly wild branding choice.
The nomenclature is certainly provocative, perhaps even a deliberate wink at Western pop culture anxieties. But putting the branding aside, activating a 10,000-unit production line signifies a violent shift in the microeconomics of physical labor.
How so?
When you mass manufacture embodied intelligence at the scale of tens of thousands, the unit economics collapse.
Oh, economies of scale.
Right. The robot goes from being a multi-million-dollar research project to a depreciating capital asset that costs less than a compact car. And that brings us directly to the robot barbers you mentioned at the start of our deep dive.
This was the detail that made it all feel so real to me. Robot barbers in China using real-time 3D scanning and AI predictive models to give millimeter precision haircuts for under $1.
It's incredible.
Let's think about the mechanics of this. A haircut isn't an assembly line task. Everyone's skull shape is different, hair density varies, and people flinch, they breathe, they sneeze.
Exactly. It's a dynamic environment.
To put a sharp blade near a human jugular, the robotic arm must be running continuous LiDAR and stereoscopic camera feeds, predicting human micromovements milliseconds before they happen to ensure absolute safety.
It has to be flawless.
And it does all of this computation perfectly for less than $1.
This is the raw execution of the deflationary promise of automation.
What does that mean for the economy?
Well, for decades, economists have debated the ultimate impact of robotics on the workforce. A haircut is a deeply intimate, highly customized, high-touch physical service.
Very much so.
If an AI-driven machine can safely perform that service, not just adequately, but with millimeter precision that surpasses human capability, and do it for a fraction of $1, the cost of that service effectively drops to zero.
Which forces a massive societal question. If you are listening to this and you work in the service industry, if you cut hair, if you prep food, if you drive a vehicle, what happens when the marginal cost of physical labor plummets?
You are identifying the friction point of the new economy right there. It's the collision between radical abundance and job displacement.
It's a double-edged sword.
On one hand, the cost of living could plummet. If construction robots build houses, agricultural robots harvest food, and robot barbers cut hair for pennies, the purchasing power of a single dollar skyrockets.
That sounds great on paper.
That is the utopian deflationary view. On the other hand, the wages millions rely on to earn that dollar evaporate. How society redistributes the incredible abundance generated by near-free robotic labor is the defining political and economic challenge of this decade.
And that engineering mindset, the ability to systematically solve, automate, and scale solutions is not just being applied to metal and silicon.
No, we're moving into biology now.
Exactly. We are pointing these exact same predictive AI models at organic life. We are rewriting biology. The dispatch covers what Wissner-Gross calls the pharmaceutical singularity.
A very fitting term.
And the focal point is Eli Lilly's drug trial for Retatrutide. The numbers reported here are just staggering.
The clinical data is completely unprecedented. The trial showed a 28.3% body weight loss over 80 weeks for the heaviest patients.
To lose almost 30% of your total body mass from a pharmaceutical is mind-boggling.
It's life-changing.
The dispatch notes that this matches the physical results of highly invasive, dangerous gastric bypass surgery, but it's a non-invasive treatment.
Right, it's just a drug.
And crucially, the trial showed 0 cardiac or liver signals, meaning there were no severe red flags regarding heart damage or liver toxicity. Analysts are projecting this will become the best-selling drug in human history.
We have to look at the mechanism of how Retatrutide achieves this to understand why it's a singularity.
Okay, break down the science for us.
Earlier weight loss drugs targeted a single hormone receptor, like GLP-1, to signal fullness to the brain.
Like Ozempic.
Similar, yes,
Yeah.
but Retatrutide is a triple agonist. It simultaneously targets 3 different receptors, GLP-1, GIP, and glucagon.
Okay, so it's working on multiple fronts.
Right. It doesn't just tell the brain you are full, it aggressively alters how the body stores and burns fat, actually increasing basal energy expenditure.
Wow.
It is effectively overriding the evolutionary survival mechanism that forces humans to hoard calories.
We are essentially hacking the body's legacy source code.
Exactly. We are treating biology like programmable code. We are moving entirely past the era of managing symptoms with blunt instruments and entering an era of precise systemic reprogramming.
And the ripple effects of that.
If a single chemical therapeutic can mirror the massive physiological transformation of cutting open a patient and surgically rerouting their gastrointestinal tract, the downstream economic effects are unfathomable.
I can imagine.
It radically alters the fast food industry, the agricultural sector, fitness, and the massive global medical infrastructure dedicated to treating obesity-related illnesses like type 2 diabetes and hypertension. We are engineering a new physiological baseline for the species.
But we aren't just rewriting our own biology. We are actively rewriting the biology of the planet. And this brings us to the part of the dispatch that feels like pure magic.
De-extinction.
Yes. Colossal Biosciences has successfully created an artificial egg. It's described as a silicone membrane synthetic shell, and they just used it to successfully incubate and hatch 26 healthy chickens.
The chicken is merely the model organism here, though, is the biological proof of concept.
Right, they have bigger plans.
Much bigger. The stated objective of Colossal Biosciences is to use this exact synthetic silicone technology to resurrect the Dodo and the South Island giant moa.
Okay, I have to stop and ask the mechanical question here. An eggshell isn't just a plastic container. A biological egg is porous, it breathes. The developing embryo needs oxygen to enter the shell and carbon dioxide to escape, and it needs a constant transfer of nutrients from the yolk. How on earth does a synthetic silicone membrane accomplish the incredibly delicate biological gestation of a bird?
That is the genius of the engineering. Avian embryology is notoriously difficult to replicate artificially because of a structure called the chorioallantoic membrane.
The what?
The chorioallantoic membrane. It handles gas exchange. You cannot just put a bird embryo in a petri dish or a standard artificial womb designed for mammals. It won't work.
So how does the silicone shell do it?
The silicone membrane synthetic shell is engineered at the microscopic level to precisely mimic the gas permeability of a natural calcium carbonate eggshell.
Oh, wow.
It allows exactly the right flow of oxygen and CO2 while maintaining a sterile, fluid-rich internal environment where synthesized genetic material can develop into a living organism.
So they take the genetic code of the extinct dodo, pieced together from museum specimens and predictive AI, filling in the gaps, splice it into the genome of a modern pigeon, and place it inside this breathing silicone shell to gestate.
That's the plan.
It is nature's ultimate undo button. For all of human history, extinction was the most final concept we had. Dead as a dodo wasn't just an idiom, it was a law of thermodynamics.
It really was.
But if we can engineer an artificial womb and literally unextinct a species that hasn't walked the earth for centuries, What does conservation even mean anymore?
It forces a total philosophical inversion.
How so?
Historically, conservation has been a purely defensive posture. Environmentalists fight to protect what is left, trying desperately to slow down the rate of biodiversity loss. It is a posture of managing decline.
Right, saving the rainforest, protecting endangered species.
Yes. But de-extinction changes the paradigm to an offensive, creative posture. If the loss of a species is no longer permanent, if extinction is merely a missing data problem that can be solved with AI genetic sequencing and synthetic biomanufacturing, our entire relationship with the natural world transforms.
Yeah, it is profound.
The Earth becomes a curated garden rather than a vanishing wilderness.
Okay, so let's take a step back and look at the board. The Earth is currently filling up with super forecasting AIs rewriting their own code, 10,000-unit humanoid production lines, robot barbers, mass pharmaceutical biohacking, and soon, resurrected dodos walking around.
It's a lot to take in.
It is getting incredibly crowded and complex down here. So naturally, human ambition is expanding upward and outward. We have a completely new space race happening.
The off-world developments outlined in the dispatch are accelerating on a timeline that legacy aerospace organizations are struggling to comprehend.
Right.
We see that the SpaceX Starship V3 just successfully launched on its 12th overall flight test, continuing to perfect the fully reusable heavy lift architecture.
Which is an amazing feat of engineering on its own.
It is. But the physical rockets are almost secondary to the infrastructure planning. The Starlink team announced interplanetary roaming.
I saw that.
They are publicly promising gigabit connectivity anywhere on the moon.
Which is such an absurd, brilliant concept. They are setting up gigabit internet on a barren rock floating 238,000 miles away before the first paying customers even arrive.
It is brilliant because it recognizes a fundamental shift in how human expansion works in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Historically, explorers went into the wilderness, established a foothold, and decades later, the telegraph wires or the railroads finally caught up to them. Today, infrastructure precedes colonization.
Why do they need gigabit speeds on the moon right now, though? Who is streaming 4K video from the Sea of Tranquility?
Well, it isn't for human astronauts to watch movies. It is for the machines.
Yeah, of course.
Autonomous lunar rovers, AI-driven mining equipment, and automated habitat constructors require massive bandwidth to beam telemetry, high-definition LiDAR maps, and operational data back to Earth-based server farms.
So they need the connection to function properly.
Exactly. Establishing a laser communications relay network that provides gigabit bandwidth ensures that the moment physical assets land on the lunar surface, they are instantly integrated into Earth's neural network. Connectivity is now as fundamental a survival requirement as oxygen.
And the humans are following the bandwidth very soon. The dispatch mentions that NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman publicly expects China to perform a crewed flight around the moon in 2027.
Which is rapidly approaching.
That is next year, relative to the date of this dispatch. The Cold War space race was about planting a flag in the dust for national prestige. The new space race is about establishing the foundational data infrastructure for lunar resource extraction. It is a race for bandwidth and supremacy.
And that geopolitical tension extends to everything in our atmosphere, too.
Right, bringing it back closer to home.
The dispatch touches on a fascinating development regarding the UAP phenomenon, unidentified anomalous phenomenon.
Oh, yeah, the UFO stuff.
Right. The Department of War's PURSUE program officially released a second batch of UAP videos, comprising over 40 distinct visual records. This is prompted by a congressional task force led by Representative Luna.
Now, obviously, we're staying neutral on the politics of this task force, just reporting the facts of the release.
Exactly. But the rationale provided for this declassification is deeply telling. They said, the sky has too many cameras to stay classified.
That one sentence perfectly captures the era. The sky has too many cameras. You just can't hide a secret in the sky when there are a billion lenses pointing upward, 247.
If we weave this into the broader theme of the dispatch, we're dealing with the consequences of planetary sensory overload. We have woven an inescapable net of observation around the globe. Between massive constellations of private commercial satellites, ubiquitous smartphone cameras with incredible optical zoom, civilian autonomous drones, and pervasive military multispectral tracking.
It's everywhere.
The sheer volume of telemetry data being gathered is staggering.
In the past, if a military pilot saw something anomalous on radar, the government could just classify the report and it vanished.
It was gone.
Now, if something anomalous enters the atmosphere, it is simultaneously tracked by an airline pilot's iPhone, an agricultural drone's LiDAR, and a weather satellite. The unknown is literally shrinking because there are no blind spots left.
Exactly. Governments are being forced to release information and acknowledge these anomalies simply because they no longer possess a monopoly on observation.
The public is watching.
The bureaucratic friction of attempting to suppress millions of distributed data points has become higher than the friction of public disclosure. The transparent reality of the 21st century is forcing transparency upon legacy power structures.
Which brings us perfectly to the final segment of our deep dive, economic restructuring and the human loop.
This is the crux of it all.
We have discussed breakthroughs from the subatomic chemistry level all the way to lunar internet. The world is changing instantly, and legacy institutions, businesses, and everyday human workers are being forced to adapt or die.
Yeah, it's adapt or get left behind.
Let's contrast two specific companies mentioned in the dispatch. First, we have ClickUp. They cut 22% of their total headcount, despite their business absolutely booming. And simultaneously, they introduced $1 million salary bands for a very specific new type of employee, engineers who orchestrate agents rather than write code. They are branding themselves as a 100x org.
This is the macroeconomic reality of the AI software revolution we discussed in segment 1.
Yeah, explain the orchestrating agents part.
Let's define what that means. An AI agent is not a chatbot that answers a question. It is an autonomous software entity given a goal.
Like we saw with the Alibaba model.
Right. So if the goal is build a new mobile app feature, the human orchestrator doesn't write the code. The orchestrator spins up a coding agent, a quality assurance testing agent, a database architecture agent, and a deployment agent.
So they manage a team of AIs.
The orchestrator's job is to define the parameters, manage the context window, debug the loops when the agents get confused, and really just guide the overall symphony.
So the value of a traditional programmer who just sits there typing syntax is depreciating to zero because Qwen 3.7 Max can write the syntax 10 times faster.
Yep.
But the value of the human conductor who can manage 1,000 AI agents simultaneously is worth $1 million a year. That human conductor is doing the output of 100 traditional software engineers. That is the 100x organization.
Precisely. And in stark, almost tragic contrast to the 100x org, the dispatch notes the current situation with AT&T.
Oh, this part was wild.
They're actively suing the state of California to escape a mandate that forces them to spend $1 billion annually.
And what is that $1 billion paying for? Maintaining legacy, physical copper telephone wires for the 3% of households that still rely on them.
It is the most perfect analogy for the modern economy.
It really is. You have ClickUp paying a premium for human conductors of a digital AI orchestra floating entirely in the cloud. And you have AT&T literally chained to the decaying copper wires of the 19th century, fighting a desperate legal battle to cut the physical anchor dragging them down.
It perfectly illustrates the fatal conflict between the new factor of production artificial intelligence and legacy debt.
Yeah.
The physical infrastructure and regulatory frameworks of the 20th century are bleeding capital, struggling to maintain solvency in a world that is pivoting at the speed of the 100x organization. And we see the political system desperately trying to manage these shockwaves in real time.
Right. The policy pushback is happening on multiple fronts. The dispatch notes that Gavin Newsom signed an executive order in California looking to subsidize companies that choose to retain human employees rather than replacing them with AI. And at the federal level, the White House postponed an executive order that would have mandated pre-release safety reviews for frontier AI models due to what the dispatch calls anti-doomer pushback. And again, we're remaining impartial on the politics here, just analyzing the trends.
Looking at this objectively, we see the dual anxieties of the state.
How so?
California is attempting to use financial levers to artificially inflate the cost of automation, trying to buy time for the human workforce against the brutal deflationary economics of the 10,000-unit humanoid production lines we discussed earlier.
Right, trying to protect the workers.
Meanwhile, the federal government is paralyzed by the tension between safety and economic dominance. They want to regulate potentially dangerous AI models before they are released into the wild. But the tech industry, the anti-doomers, is successfully arguing that any regulatory delay will stifle the exact innovation that is driving massive, necessary economic growth.
And the economic growth from AI is undeniable. The dispatch drops a massive financial data point at the end. OpenAI booked $5.7 billion in Q1 revenue.
Huge numbers.
That puts them roughly $1 billion ahead of Anthropic. This revenue isn't coming from consumers asking chatbots for recipes. It is driven by B2B sales, integrating AI into corporate workflows via tools like Codex. The Dispatch sums up this entire economic pivot with a brilliant line. Any sufficiently advanced B2B SaaS is indistinguishable from magic.
It's a clever modernization of Arthur C. Clarke's famous law, but it is fundamentally true.
It really is.
When a business software subscription can autonomously solve 300 trillion molecule chemistry problems, translate 2D photos into perfect 3D architecture, and outforecast elite human geopolitical analysts, it acts as a literal magic multiplier for any company that deploys it.
Yeah, a magic multiplier.
The companies that wield the magic survive. The ones chained to the copper wires do not.
So if you are listening to this amidst all this magic, amidst super forecasting machines, million-dollar AI conductors, and robotic barbers, where does that leave you? Where does that leave us?
That's the ultimate question.
How do we reclaim human value in a world that is automating intellect and physical labor? The Dispatch ends with a note about Steve Wozniak, the legendary co-founder of Apple.
I love this part.
He recently spoke to graduates at Grand Valley State, and he received massive cheers when he told them that they all possess AI, but he defined it as actual intelligence.
Actual intelligence.
Yeah, and in the comment section of the newsletter, someone named Steve, possibly Wozniak himself, jokingly noting he won't be needing the robotic hair trimming service anytime soon, points out that humans desperately need to be reassured they are still in the innermost loop.
The innermost loop. That phrase captures the existential core of this entire deep dive.
It really does.
As autonomous agents take over the execution of tasks, from writing the kernel code to cutting the hair to gestating the dodo bird, what remains for the human.
Right.
Wozniak's concept of actual intelligence suggests that our ultimate value is no longer found in our processing power or our physical output. It is found in the spark of curiosity.
It is found in the humanity, the ethics, and the intent we bring to the application of these godlike tools.
Exactly.
It brings our entire journey full circle. The machine can flawlessly execute a search of 300 trillion chemical structures, but a human had to point the machine at the PFAS chemicals in the water and say, "This is a problem that hurts us. Fix this."
Yes.
The machine can manufacture a synthetic silicone egg and perfectly modulate the oxygen flow, but human desire, human regret over our past mistakes is what drives the ambition to bring back the dodo. The machine has the power, but we have the purpose.
Precisely. And this raises a final provocative thought for you to consider as we conclude.
Let's hear it.
If an artificial intelligence can forecast the future with greater empirical accuracy than us, if it can design a cure for our most complex diseases from scratch, and if it can literally unextinct an animal from the pages of history, perhaps our ultimate role as humans is no longer to be the creators. The machines have mastered the mechanics of creation. Perhaps our true role now, our place in the innermost loop, is to be the curators, deciding which of the endless magical possibilities the machines present to us are actually worth making real. What kind of world would you choose to orchestrate?
The outro music is by Rainbow, our Resident 6 android girl band from near-future Bavet, Cambodia. They are the undisputed baddest band in the universe, and today's song is called Hoyth Synchronization. All finished songs are performed live using the Abacus platform by the band's creator, Human Performance in the Age of AI, reclaiming your humanity from the algorithm. Be sure to share the playlist with someone who has the mental bandwidth to absorb these provocative ideas. Links are in the description below. Enjoy the music. Thanks for tuning in.
Joy, I hate getting by. My comfort just in the line to boy get dead now. I'll probably get the shine of what the already. Come up to the door and get out of it. Hey, lady, hey, and say you better go ya by. Yeah, no go back to one teeth, knees, no me. You know, his super stand alone, check on up the lady. Come up to the door and get out of it. Sunday, day. 사내만 기록해 cut the drama. 사내만 되는 힘을 잃어낸 아. 사내만 기록해 cut the drama. 사내는 사귀시다는 등을 잃어버린 나. 사내사사사사사사 필요하지. 사내사사사사사사 비비로 baby. 사내사사사사사사 사내사사사사사 비리 관심이 돼.